tell them a little about what you do and how you got started?
Sure. Yeah. Great to meet everybody. It's really cool that you guys all have interest and passion in film, and it's great that there's some editors out there too, because I'm also an editor as well as a director. I'll typically edit, everything that I shoot, um, unless it's kind of a unusual circumstance. So anyway, I got started
Wait,
taking
wait. Do
film
you
classes.
edit what you shoot because you like, is it a control thing? Like, what's your, because
Yeah,
it kind of changes
it's
the
a
whole
little,
thing to have
it
a different
does.
editor, right?
It does. So I haven't, I came up, editing was actually my first skill set. Like I learned to edit in high school and in college. And it's the first kind of work I would get in the industry. I would be an assistant editor, or I'd work with other directors and edit their stuff. And being able to understand how an edit works, being able to understand the software and the time that it takes to kind of accomplish something and deliver it, I think is really valuable, whether you're just going to be an editor or whether you're going to be a director or even a cinematographer. Because if you have that understanding of the post-production workflow, it'll make your decision making before you get to that stage much more efficient and much more effective. So when I'm shooting, I'm constantly thinking, how is this going to work in the edit? Maybe I don't need to waste time shooting a certain scene or certain shot if I can already weave it together in my head. So,
Yeah.
well, back to how I started and the things that I did early on. Like I said, I started out as an editor. I also took, I was a major in history, but I took film classes in the summer in the city. And I also took film classes after I graduated whenever I could, to just kind of polish up on, a different area of the craft. And music videos really became a passion of mine because I love music and I love working with artists. So I started to develop an understanding of music videos as their own genre and kept shooting videos. And I noticed I would shoot one and people who knew that artist would then reach out to me to do their video. And it would kind of snowball in that way to the point where I would take the work that I had and I'd reach out to uh, reps and labels and production companies and say, let's try to collaborate. Is there any opportunity that we can work together? And slowly it would just build, and I would get opportunities to pitch for bigger artists and pitch for major labels, and slowly but surely the jobs would come through and my portfolio would grow. And with each project, I would try to do something a little bit more innovative or a little bit more unique than what I had previously done. And I think with that mindset's a good way to push the kind of work that you do forward. And similar to music video world, I'm continuing to grow into commercials and branded space. And it's the same sort of process where I'll take an opportunity and try to make the most of it and try to make it feel unique and special to me, and try to bring something to the table that perhaps other directors can't or aren't thinking in that way. Put that into the work and then share the work to try to get more work. And that's kind of been the journey. But I'll say throughout the process up until this point, film, being behind the camera, it's such a unique position to be in that it can take you into amazing experiences just on the personal level. Well, you'll be able to shoot perhaps like a concert or be backstage, or somebody will fly you out somewhere to do a shoot. And I think that's part of the beauty of being in film, is that it can take you so far and you get to see so many different things. So
Melissa asks, how did you get your foot in the door in the music industry in the first place?
so my first, I guess, first music video shoot, my friend had a friend who was a rapper and he was looking for a video. And, I did it pro bono. I just had a little camera. I met him and we shot a video, and it really just went from there. So after I did that one, somebody that knew him had reached out and wanted a video. And all of a sudden I have like 4 or 5 hip hop videos. And, with that kind of work under your belt, people, you know, they don't know that it's your friend's friend that you did it for. They just see the work, and all of a sudden you're a music video director and you have this small body of work that you can take and pitch to other people and pitch to potentially artists that you want to work with. And, you know, I do the same thing today. You know, I take the work and I'll reach out to whether it's an artist or a label and say, would love to work with so-and-so. Do they have anything coming up that I can pitch on?
And what are your pitches like?
Yeah, so at this stage, something that I didn't learn as early on as maybe you guys, but a lot of the work as a director comes before the actual shoot. The shoot itself is more like the reward for the work that you've already put in. The hardest part of the job, at least for me, is getting the job. So rarely does somebody come to you and say, here, we want you to shoot this, let's go for it. Usually, you know, 9 times out of 10, it's a pitching process, and you'll be pitching up against other directors. Perhaps you're just pitching them the idea to see if they like it. And typically, at least with music videos, you'll get an email that says, this is kind of what the artist is looking for. This is the direction that they want to go. And he's going to be in LA or in New York. Can we have a pitch from you about, you know, within a day or two to see if the artist is going to connect with your vision? So I'll pull, you know, inspiration from online or films, photography, and mix it with kind of how the music feels and come up with a narrative, come up with a vision for how I see the video. And I'll map it out, and it depends on the artist and the circumstance, but typically I'll walk through the concept, walk through how I'm going to execute it, and then provide any other notes on why this is going to stand out and why it's going to be special. Perhaps it has a visual effects component, or maybe there's a special camera trick, and and try to present a pitch that feels like the finished product. You know, if I could go to my final video and look back at the pitch and they feel consistent, they feel like this is just the final video in image and word form, then you've done your job. A good range.
Selma asks, what's the work that you are most proud of, and what was the most difficult to shoot?
The work that I'm most proud of, it was actually a music video / short film I did with a independent artist. He's a good friend of mine. His name's Dylan Owen. We did this a few years ago, and he just had a really amazing vision for his work as a musician, and it really aligned with kind of my visual sensibilities. So we connected and we ended up doing this project. It's called There's More to Life. And this one project really helped open a lot of doors for me because people responded to it. It was very honest, and it was very just good reflection of my style and my sensibility. And it wasn't something that I did deliberately, but we were just working straight from kind of our instincts. And it came out to be a really beautiful piece. It got some good recognition and helped me get, you know, my work since then. So everything, like I said, kind of snowballs. And this is one of those projects that felt like the best representation of me at the time and my voice.
And what was the most difficult thing you've shot so far?
The most difficult thing, I'll give you guys a good story. It was a kind of a crummy situation, but good to reflect on. Maybe about a year and a half ago, I did a music video for Sabrina Claudio, and it was featuring Zayn, the guy from One Direction. And we basically had planned the entire shoot around Zayn's schedule because he had other conflicts and a lot of asks. But when you work with talent that is that well known, you really have to accommodate them and make sure everything feels right. So we had, you know, he had a trailer, and he had a person to clip his beard and like clip his hair, and just people for everything. He had bodyguards and so on. But long story short, it was Sabrina's video and it was her project, and he was just the featured artist. So we need to make sure that we gave her everything that she needed as well. But we get to set that day and everything's kind of going to plan, and we get word that Zayn's running late. And usually when an artist runs late, they run really late. And I've been in a situation where artists won't show up for hours, and you kind of have to just work around their schedule. But in this case, he was so late that it kind of screwed up the day to the point where we couldn't really make it up, because everything is timed out very, very carefully. We timed certain shots out with the sunset and certain shots for the nighttime, and we need these people coming in at this point. And we found out about halfway through the shoot that he wasn't going to be able to make it for some kind of unknown reason, despite us having all his people there, and everybody was just kind of confused. So in that moment, you can't throw away the shoot. We've already shot half the day, and we needed to figure out a solution on how we're going to fill Zayn's role in this music video without him being there. So we ended up taking his styling. He had this leather coat that we're going to put him in, and we dressed up our art director, and we put him in the video because he was also a model, and we shot him from behind, and we kind of filled in Zayn's parts creatively with somebody in the crew.
So like a stand-in?
Like a stand-in, yeah. And
that's awesome.
And we shot him very, very mysteriously, so we don't really see his face, but we're able to fill in some of these scenes that we had built out for Zayn. And long story short, it was quite the stressful situation at the time, and a letdown for everybody, because kind of worked around his ass and his schedule. But these things happen in production, and you're always going to experience curveballs. And when you're working with talent and people that are on kind of their own wavelength, you just have to be flexible. And being in the filmmaker's seat is, it's just part of the job. It's constant problem solving. Sometimes the problems are bigger than others,
Yeah. I've worked for with TRL, VMAs, and Sundance film festivals. So yeah.
Yeah. And the nature of artists in the music world, you're just constantly going to be dealing with things. And I just gave you one example, but it's always something.
It's always something.
It's always something. So it all starts with the treatment, and that's what it's called in music videos. It's, like I said, it's the pitch, where you assemble images and you put together what you're going to do in writing. I get my ideas, you try to make them as original as possible, but also take a lot of inspiration from either films or other music videos. And over time, I realized there's things that I like to shoot and things that I'm not as drawn to. And there are some directors that really only shoot, certain kinds of things. I've shot a range of kinds of projects, but realized more and more that I like shooting on location, and I like shooting with certain kinds of moods. And, I prefer not to do too much animation. There's just, depending on what your creative inspiration is and your tendencies, you start to realize that. So based on that, and based on pitches that I felt have worked in the past, I'll put together a pitch. And if they go for it, that's great. You're kind of past step one at that point. After that, you'll have a conversation with the label and with the artist, and just get on the same page. And part of being a director is making sure that you build a rapport with everybody that you're working with, and you're making sure that they feel comfortable with what you're doing. And that's a really important part of the job. Is what you want to do in your own head, but making sure that the people that you're working with also understand that, and understand it in a way that a regular person can understand it, because they're not filmmakers. They don't have the same kind of shorthand that you may have. So communicating it to a way that they'll feel like they get it is really important. After that is really, for me, once you get past that stage, we're into the more fun part of the process, where you start to assemble a team. So if you work with a cinematographer, there's a few cinematographers that I work with, I have relationships with. You start to talk about the kind of shots that you want and how you're going to execute it. You nail down the location. If you're working with a production designer, art director, you may need to build out a certain kind of aesthetic in the location that supports your vision. And perhaps you have a cast. Maybe you're not working, maybe the artist isn't in the video, and you're going to hire actors and go through the casting process. So you're putting all the pre-production pieces together, and the vision's starting to come alive. And you need to do, what other filmmakers refer to as trusting the process, and understanding at this point, it may be a bit stressful, because even though you have your location, maybe you haven't been able to go to it, you only can see images of it. It's never going to match what's in your head exactly. So you're going to have to kind of continue to adapt, but understand that if you trust the process and you put all the pieces together and you do all the prep work, when you get to set, you follow the roadmap that you've already made for yourself. And part of that is something that I've always done has been I'll storyboard out the shots that I want. It really helps me visualize it because, you know, you start putting these images together and you could see it so much more clearly than just through what's in your head or through words. So this is a storyboard that I did for my most recent project, which I just shot in LA. And typically I don't work with a storyboard artist, but in the last couple projects I have. So these are very much more elaborate than I think they really need to be. But it's also good to share potentially with the client. And then you can see closely here, you know, we have our different shots in order of how they're going to be executed.
It's so good to hear because when we do the storyboards with kids, they're often like, do they really do this? I'm like, yes, they do.
Yeah, storyboards are so, they're helpful. And what I've noticed for me and the way that I work is just the process of doing it kind of puts it into your head. So
Yes,
I got the set last week and I don't even really reference it. You know, maybe from time to time I'll take a look, but it's already in my head. It's really for other people to follow along, or one application for it is you could give it to the client. You could show other people on set and they feel like they can follow along. But once you do it, it's already in your head. Like, you know what you need. And when you're looking through the camera and you're on set, it all will come together because you've been kind of just in it for the time leading up to it. Let's see if I could dig up the initial language that was sent to me, because I think this will be fun. 1 second, guys. So the email subject was Meghan Trainor urgent, and this was on January 31st. They wanted to do this video for Valentine's Day. It
And they thought
said,
of it on January 31st.
I know, as if they didn't know they already, and the whole
That's
album,
crazy.
this whole project was a Valentine's Day theme, or like a very loving theme. So yeah, this is just standard for music industry, is everything's always last minute. So this January 31st, we have a video for Meghan Trainor that we want to shoot ASAP for a 210 release. So I guess it was prior to Valentine's Day. She won't be in the video, but we have this budget looking for a visual that conveys different ways that love is expressed across all walks of life, all the ways to love. So that's it. That was the information that was given to me. And I think I had maybe seen these like teddy bears on the street. This was like a little bit of a thing that was happening at the time. And I just got this idea instantly. And I said, this is kind of wild. Let me just put it in there. And they went for it. And then Meghan Trainor reached out to her friend, this actress, Bailey Madison, who flew out to do it. And all within a few days, it came together. So
that's amazing. Next question is from Melissa. How do you find your crew for your music videos or films in general?
yeah, so it's kind of in two ways. Some people you just connect with, like even, you know, at the stage you guys are at, you'll make friends, you'll make relationships and people who are doing different parts of the process. And usually that's the most organic way to build your crew and your collaborators. People that you know, people that you've come up with, people maybe that are PAs, but they want to be art directors, or people who are camera assistants, but they want to be DPs. Making those relationships just throughout your career is really important. And just connecting with people that you generally get along with, I notice, is something that I really try to do. Another thing is if you link up with a producer or somebody else who's helping you on a project, they may have recommendations, which is always helpful. If somebody who you know has worked with somebody else and they feel comfortable and they think you'd be a good fit, taking recommendations like that is always great. And then reaching out to people that you admire, that you want to work with. For a director, being able to work with a more established DP or somebody that has uh, a certain look or just more of an expertise is always a great way to go, and something that I did early in my career and I still try to do. If I can work with somebody who's just much more advanced than me, I'm going to learn a lot in the process and also have a great product to show. So I think all the above. Sometimes I recently reached out to the art director who did some of Beyonce's work because I thought that she was amazing, and I was like, maybe it'll be a reach, maybe she won't be able to do it. But we reached out, we had a conversation. The project actually didn't come to life, but she said she was interested, and we developed a little bit of a relationship there. So always reaching out. You'll be surprised at who will be willing to work with you, especially if you're passionate or you might have a vision for something. I think people are very open to collaborating, even if they have more experience than you. I think it's a really great way to go.
That's awesome. I guess a continuation of that is, do you ever have people who reach out to you to be part of your crew? Hint, hint.
Yeah, no, all the time, all the time. And I try to, yeah, try to make it happen in whatever way I can, for sure. So
Um, Going back, because I've skipped over some, I think I will get everybody, but just I think along the same lines, did college help you succeed? Rebecca's asking, or was it more gaining experience through projects and networking from there? Like what
yeah,
everybody's kind of either in college or going to college and wondering. I think everybody's super stressed about their college decisions, and like, I was trying
yeah,
to tell everyone like just don't stress. Like it's not that critical where you go to college.
yeah. I think for college, for me, it's more just development as a person rather than industry specific. So you have experiences no matter where you go. Just the general kind of elements of growing up and relationships and friendships that you take away, and maybe just a general education on things is great. But I think it's been a combination of film classes for me that weren't really part of my college studies. It was more extracurricular. Plus, uh, with film, you really do have to get into it um, to kind of build that muscle memory. You have to be in these situations. You have to be shooting. You have to be like the Zayn situation, for example, in these very kind of tricky things that you feel the pressure on and adapt and grow from it. And the only way to truly gain those is from being in it. But but studying film is also very beneficial as far as understanding some of the technical elements of film and understanding what's been done in the past. So it's really a combination. But I think I know some really successful directors that have gone to film school. I've known really successful directors that haven't even gone to college, and they've just started right after high school, just started making films and have gone from there. So I think it's really about what feels right to you.
And I think always make work, right? No matter where you are, what you're doing, make your own work.
Make your own work, yeah. At the end of the day, you always want to be shooting and making work. Everything that you do, you're going to learn something from. Like every project, no matter what it is, you're going to take something away. So um, doing work is really the best way to gain experience and give yourself an education. And watching movies and watching films, that's really uh, that's also can't be underrated.
Truly.
Yeah.
Josiah asks, how have your films benefited from your experience directing music videos?
Yeah. So music videos have been a really great tool for a lot of reasons. A lot of directors will start in music videos because it's much more open and accepting industry is creatively. So you can kind of do anything or pitch anything, like a girl fall in love with a bear, and it might get a green light in music video world. Anything goes, especially now, because artists are doing all kinds of crazy things. So just developing or reaching creatively and finding areas that you may not have been thinking about going to visually, whether it's how you shoot something, where you shoot something, maybe it's in the edit. You can try all kinds of different tricks and looks and feelings. So just flexing and building those muscles creatively is one element, but also learning how to shoot specific kind of talent is something that I'm continuing to learn. Some artists look amazing on camera, and you could shoot them, you could put the camera anywhere and they'll look great. A lot of artists can only be shot with certain angles and with certain kinds of lighting. Otherwise, they're going to feel like they look unflattering, and they might not love what you're doing with their image. So learning how to shoot people, and for the most part, you know, as you're coming up, you're probably not going to be shooting a lot of these people that just look so amazing on camera. So figuring out how to frame somebody in a flattering way, what lens to use, the kind of lighting that's going to feel best for them, is all things that, you know, I've taken away in music videos and can apply to my other work. And also giving a scene a feeling. So working on this documentary project, and I don't want to treat it just like I show up with a camera and shoot what I see. I'm trying to think about the times of day that are going to achieve a certain mood, where the sun's going to be in the sky, how to give my subject a feeling through light and through movement that's going to elevate it much more than just showing up and pointing the camera at him. So yeah, I think visually music videos are really a great way to continue to build your own vision and where it'll take you.
Raymond says, with the music video Caroline, how did filmmaking with that many celebrities affect the filmmaking process and the filming of the video itself?
Yeah, that was a great experience as far as working with really established talent and knowing that they don't have a lot of time, and there's not a lot of room for error or for you to be indecisive. So that was a really actually unique experience, just similar to the Meghan Trainor one, in that these projects, they have like a starting point, a seed, and then they grow into something else. So that one, I got a email that said, are you interested in pitching on this Steve Martin video? He only has 2 hours after he's doing a stand-up show with Martin Short in Minneapolis. Can you come up with an idea that
that's crazy,
that will fit that criteria? Yeah, and there wasn't, you know, that big of a budget on it compared to other projects. So I it's like, okay, well, what can we do? I think it's got to be green screen, because if we shoot them on green screen, that'll give us the most flexibility in post-production. You know, it's always about problem solving, and there's always a solution. You just got to think about it in a certain way. So if I shoot Steve Martin on a green screen, then it'll fit into that 2 hour window that they're giving me, and I could put in a lot of more resources and time and development into post-production. So we pitched that, and they went for it, and I ended up working with this amazing stop motion artist in post-production to build out the story. So we shot Steve Martin, and then I guess he was, you know, really excited about the project, and he actually called Bill Hader and Cecily Strong and said, do you want to be the actors in this music video? We already shot part of it. So a couple weeks later, I shot Bill Hader and Cecily Strong in New York against green screen. And again, it was green screen that gave us this kind of flexibility where we could turn it into a 2-day shoot, and we could kind of mold it as we went. So while there was initial narrative that you see in the video, some of these pieces still came together afterward. But as far as working with celebrity talent, people who have been on screen for, you know, more years than I've been alive, it's just about being honest with what the project is and what I need from them, and not, you know, a big part of working with people that are well known is not you know, just maintaining professionalism. They don't want to feel like they're with a fan. They want to feel like, you know, they're working on a project. And those guys were all incredibly professional, like amazing to work with. And yeah, I think it's just about maintaining that.
So no
confidence. Yeah, no selfie. I got a picture with Steve after the shoot, but it's, you know, very subtle. Hey, you know, mind if we grab a picture before you go? And not.
Yeah, so truly.
But I will say it's a real delight to work with people who are so comfortable on screen and so professional. They take direction. But I remember at one point while we're shooting with Bill Hader, I started to get this feeling kind of in the back of my head that he was almost ready to go. You know, he was doing Steve Martin a solid, and just have to be respectful of those feelings that you have. So I don't want to do another take if I don't have to. I don't want to ask him to do X, Y, and Z if I don't really need it. So just managing the talent and making sure that they will listen to you because you're not taking advantage of their time.
I think one was, do you ever have a creative block when you're hit with these ideas and you have to come up with a pitch, and how do you work through creative blocks? What's
Yeah, I remember. So when I first started pitching on music videos, my pitches, they were just bad. I didn't know how to kind of go through this creative process. So I would say my first pitches, they're just on a Word document. They felt way too big for the budget. They weren't as clever. They weren't as tight. And as I kept doing them and building through repetition and seeing what's working and see what doesn't, and looking at other people's pitches, you kind of come up with a workflow, a way to approach things. And there are definitely certain times where I will get in a song, even if I really like the artist, and just something doesn't sync up right. And usually in those cases, I'll end up defaulting to something I've already done, or I'll be more general about what I'm going to do, and I'll try to figure it out as the process goes along. But usually that's not a good sign for me getting the job. So, you're never inevitably going to hit these creative blocks. Sometimes it's because the project doesn't speak to you. Sometimes maybe you're thinking too much about it. With creative decisions, whether it's on set or whether it's building a pitch, you really do need to find a way where you understand yourself and when you're most productive creatively. And typically when I'm thinking about something very, very hard, it's when I'm least effective.
Mm-hmm.
If I sit down, I need to think about this and come up with something creative, it's probably not going to happen, or it will, but it'll be a very likely cliche option, something that's obvious. The best ideas come when you're not thinking about it, or when you step away from something. I read this book, I think it's called How to Come Up with Ideas. It's this really short book. Nina, I'll send you the link if I can remember it. And it was written by these ad agency guys, but essentially you can give a subject a lot of thought. And this is what I try to do. Listen to the song, I'll look at imagery, look at inspiration, think about it. If I don't come up with anything, or even if I do, I'll then sleep on it and try to step away from a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And when I come back to it, your brain does something very special in the back of your head. It'll start to weave things together in ways that you may not even realize it's doing it. And when you come back to it, sometimes you'll have a more clear picture. Sometimes you'll get a flash of something that feels right. And you just got to try to grab onto those things. And it's not always going to work. It's not a foolproof strategy, but if you understand the rhythms of yourself, you'll be able to pull out the more creative ideas that you have.
Catherine says, what's the best way to get your ideas and visions out to your crew and cast members when working on music videos? Do you have other methods of organization for your scenes besides storyboarding?
Sure, yeah. A shot list is what I get asked for most by everybody. And the shot list can range from, I used to just write down close up, wide shot, and go on very, very brief. More recently, I just did a green screen project that required us to be extremely precise about what we're shooting, because it was going to connect with what the visual effects team was going to do later. So I made my shot list for that project, but it included a lot of details as far as the part of the song that we were going to shoot just for that section. It included the exact camera movement during the exact point in time of the song. So from second 11 to 12, the camera is going to move left. From second 12 to 15, we're going to push in slowly, and from second 15 to 16, the camera is going to transition outright. So a shot list is going to be the thing that you're going to probably get asked for the most, but also be really helpful for you to build off of. And in the shot list, you add notes on lighting, notes on the art direction, notes on the props, potentially notes on what you want your subject to be doing or looking like in the mood. It can be as elaborate or as simple as you feel is appropriate for the project. Typically, I think the more details, the better for everybody else. So
And the
I'd
less,
recommend
the less
going.
you have to talk, or you just be like, look at your shot list.
Yeah, and you can always refer back to it. You'll end up doing these phone calls and people will ask you a lot of questions, and it's really helpful if you're able to then say, reference what's already on paper. So it'll keep things more efficient.
And what, who do you think is the biggest diva of the cast? Or the crew, not the cast.
Of the crew, well, you do want to be very respectful of each of the positions. So the DP is going to know more about lighting and the camera and these elements of the craft than you probably will as a director. This is what they do every day. They're in it with the equipment and with the nuances of everything. So while as a director, you really should know the ins and outs of all these parts of the camera department, you're not going to know it to the same degree. So you're going to want to listen to them and take their feedback and take their recommendations. I love working with a DP who gives me suggestions and says, well, we could do this like you're saying, but we also can try it like this, or why don't we position him like that, or switch the lens. And I'll always listen, and I'll usually take their feedback because their instincts are coming from a different place. And you're not always right as a director. I think it's important to take feedback from your crew. And the same thing with the art department. That especially is the part of the production that I had the least experience with as I was coming up. So when I work with an art director, I'll almost say, like, I want this, but I really trust you and I would like some feedback on this. And please bring stuff to me to sort through and we'll talk it out. So you do get sometimes a diva personality if you run the production like you're the only voice. People, they'll get a little bit sensitive, and I think rightfully so, because their opinions should be heard. And if you keep an open ear to all these things, then everybody's going to feel, it's going to feel more collaborative and more, it'll be more effective. And at the end of the day, if they bring you a suggestion that you don't love, you're the director and you absolutely can say, we don't have time for that, or that doesn't feel right. But listening to everybody, I think is certainly something that's been effective for me. I think there are directors like a Stanley Kubrick type who may not have had that same kind of dialogue, where his vision was so precise and so perfect that you just need to listen and do as he said. But I think there are many directors out there that wouldn't subscribe to that kind of directing. So it's really about feeling it out, what's right for you. But collaboration is always good.
So last words of advice for ages 16 to 20 who want to do film, what should they be doing these next few years?
Oh yeah, I would say pretty much two things. Just shoot or get involved in film projects as much as you can, and make sure that you're having fun. I think some of the most fun I had was at your guys' age, shooting and making stuff, and then you see it in the edit and you're laughing, and it's just a good time to have fun with the craft. So definitely try to shoot things that are interesting to you, that make you feel excited about it. You should be excited about the work that you're doing.